my introduction into NXT, Matt Bloom had his interest in me at first was as a coach. The coaching thing, I think, was the immediate interest, but then somewhere along the lines, someone made it plain to them that there was still tread left on the tires.
My takeaway from that is we got him before NXT did.
Boom. What's up, champions? Welcome to another edition of the Podcast of Champions, and today we have a very special guest. Not only is he a world-renowned pro wrestler in the business for over 20 to 25 years, he's been in every single promotion and major company that you can think about. You've probably seen him on TV. The man is a legend, but he's also the newest member here at the coaching staff of the House of Champions, Mr. Bobby Fish.
Thank you.
Yes. Very excited to have him, and we just wanted to use this time to kind of introduce Mr. Bobby and talk about, what it means for you to become a coach, kind of for the next generation, to kind of pass the buck along, and your philosophies. But I guess let's get back into kind of your training, background. Have you ever been a trainer, a formal trainer for a school before?
From a wrestling standpoint, I think you're always, from when you start training, like I remember the group of guys that I was training with Tony DeVito, as people make their way in, you're kind of helping to assist. I remember you would help assist Tony with the things that you already knew that he had taught you.
Sure.
So there's some of that, but yeah, I don't think I've done seminars.
You did one for us?
Yes, I definitely did. I am kind of one of the coaching staff at Malachi Black's school in Plant City. But given the location, it's only when I can be there. So it's something that he and I have worked out to where when I am in town, I can pop in and help with their school. So this is the first, one that I'm really jumping all the way in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of that, did you ever think coming up and wrestling, all these years, that you would ever be a trainer? Or did you ever have any aspirations to be a trainer?
So when I was coming up in college, I played football, and then I coached for 1 year after I was done playing, because I still had to go back and get a few credits to get my degree. And it just made sense. I loved football. And what I realized was I loved playing football. I didn't love coaching football. So I always thought, I think that then when I got into my wrestling journey, I just kind of always thought, I'll just, when I'm done performing, I think I'm done performing, and then I'm done. And I didn't know necessarily and then I'm going to want to get as far away from the business as I can or stay close to it or whatever. So it was kind of a surprise when I started doing seminars. Also, my introduction into NXT, Matt Bloom had his interest in me at first was as a coach. And that's a whole nother story for another time. But the idea was that at some point I would go back and coach.
Okay.
And so that made me think of it, but I did not think I would want to. I really thought I would not want to. So this has all been kind of a pleasant surprise for me as I've navigated what is, I don't know. I'm still performing, but I didn't expect to enjoy passing on the information.
I want to hear the story. Matt Bloom's story.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I learned something new today.
I know.
I had no idea.
We're only 4 minutes in, and I'm learning so many things.
Yeah, so you originally thought you were possibly going to come in as a coach. When did that change? How did that change? Was it gradual?
I don't really have all the answers for it. I have my theory on it. And it's kind of a theory that I've come up with only after after the fact. So hindsight's always 20/20, right? But I think coming in, I believe, like Coach Bloom saw maybe it was the age, I don't know, but like Roddy's already there. Adam and Kyle and I are all involved in some of the upper level stuff with Ring of Honor at that time. And then Kyle and I are getting a lot of traction in New Japan. There was just some kind of buzz, and then those guys were getting interest from NXT, and NXT was a buzz at that point because Fergal had just come in and then moved up, and Shinsuke, etc. So when that started to come into place and our contracts were up with Ring of Honor, there was definite interest with Adam and Kyle, and then I wasn't hearing the same. So I was negotiating a contract with possibly New Japan to do more dates in Japan and less dates with Ring of Honor, but still probably have those two make up my salary. And then I don't know. There was the coaching thing. I think was the immediate interest, but then somewhere along the lines, someone made it plain to them that there was still tread left on the tires of this, old army tank or whatever I would be considered. Definitely wouldn't be considered like a Ferrari. So I guess that's where the army tank thing came from.
But he's
maybe fire hydrant. I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe a broken fire hydrant.
That's too
I
much.
think that's what I resemble.
It worked, whatever it was.
So my personal thought is that Hunter had maybe the four of us at least loosely pegged for something. Mm-hmm. I think William Regal being Hunter's confidant and being somebody that he trusted. I know Regal we knew from PWG.
Okay.
I believe Regal, and again, this is all my imagination coming up with this, but I believe Regal was maybe the first voice that was like, there's some tread left on those tires. We should reconsider. And then it became like, okay, well, let's consider him as a performer. And then, the Undisputed Era happened, and the rest is what it is. And then eventually I thought like, I'll probably end up going back there as a coach or something. And then as time, you think like, okay, that door is that easily like swings open and shut, but it's just not the way in the industry. So kind of getting to this point where I'm still wrestling and physically still can, which I'm fortunate and grateful for. I love it, but I started to poke around with the coaching thing. Because I used to coach CrossFit, and I coached other things that Muay Thai and things that I enjoyed coaching. I just didn't anticipate wrestling being one of those things, and I was wrong. So happy to say.
Yeah.
My takeaway from that is we got him before NXT did.
Boom. Take that, Regal. Cut that part out. No, that's awesome. And I mean, talking about coaching or producing, obviously, if you don't mind me saying, you are a producer for MLW right now.
Yes.
So you still get to, obviously dip your toe in that water outside of the wrestling school to, helping put together matches, moments, shows, things like that. And you've been doing that for a little bit now. How do you think that has helped you be more well-rounded as a coach, a performer, a wrestler, all those things?
I think anytime I know this is said in jiu-jitsu circles a lot, where if you start to coach, you learn it from a different side.
Yeah.
And you start to see things in it. You become better at what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like so much of pro wrestling, we're around our peers, we're around the people that we are growing up in the business with. I was around, Adam and Kyle and Roddy, and we all basically know the same stuff. We're just four idiots. But then when you get around people that are kind of coming up, you realize that some of this information is not common knowledge. And then you see them do things that like you wouldn't necessarily do. And then if you're fortunate enough to be able to have that conversation, and then you see the light bulb go off in their head, that there's a rewarding part of that I guess I didn't anticipate. And I think that's part of what has sparked my my interest in this, and I wasn't entirely expecting it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. And another thing that you touched on as well, about how, you know, there's quote unquote still tread on the tires and you're still able to perform at a high level. I'm sure that you would attribute it to, you know, the types of workouts that you're doing as well as DDPY, which is something that he actually is bringing to the HOC as well. He not only is a coach in the ring, but he's also coaching strength and conditioning classes as well as DDPY classes. So if you wouldn't mind, talk to us about how, you know, DDPY and the way that you train now has changed you for the better, and how you think that it may change wrestlers in general for the better.
DDP yoga, DDPY, whatever we call it, you know, all you got to do is do a Google search. I don't need to blow that horn really. It's already out there, and if you did not know the man, if you were not aware of Dallas and his story, and, you know, Positively Unstoppable, the name of his book, and
Great
those
book.
things, they're not just a gimmick. I mean, they're truly not. Like, the man was not supposed to be who he was in wrestling, and the man was not supposed to turn yoga into this. Like, none of those things were like I'm not going to say they weren't supposed to happen. They obviously were, but they were not going to be like handed to him. And this, I mean, if you can't be inspired by Diamond Dallas Page, like, I lose my number. I don't think we can be friends. But so yeah, I think physically, I would say DDP yoga. I started it in 2018 after ACL surgery. Not because of the ACL surgery per se, but more because I had just moved to Florida from New York. My wife and I had not met yet. We had met. No, we hadn't met right before that. That we met right after my knee surgery. But anyway, I was stuck in my apartment, and the only people I knew in Florida were people from work. So like, I now had no network. I didn't even have my dog then. It was just me in a 1-bedroom apartment. So to stop myself from going crazy, Dallas had gifted me the program a long time before, like many others, and I was like, let me see what this is. And when I did it, it said, okay, it meets you, DDP yoga meets you where you are, and there's a program that starts in the bed. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the bed and I can't really get up, so let me make this next 30 minutes different from the next or the previous. And so I did it. Eventually you progress to a chair, then you progress to like getting up out of the chair, et cetera, et cetera. And I just saw such benefit from it that I would say from 2018 to now, I've just never stopped doing it. And so when I saw that they were certifying people to become trainers, and I had been previously a CrossFit level 1, level 2 trainer, and I just was like, it makes sense. Like, let me see. And then Dallas, again, they have been so beyond generous, it just doesn't even make sense. But helped me in that process, and now I'm a certified level 1 DDP yoga instructor. By the end of the year, trying to get my level 2, and then eventually the master certification. And it just, yeah, it's has to be the biggest reason why I feel as good as I do, because I know that there are times, you know yourself, Nick, you'll wrestle, and I swear to God, some days, some mornings after, my body is craving forward fold, or like certain movements where like I know what is ailing me. I know how to figure it out, and it's 9 out of 10 times it's DDP yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that absolutely. I know that it's been a tremendous benefit for me. How do you think that just for wrestlers in general, how could it benefit them? Obviously, mobility, recovery, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I think more than anything, it's that, but I think also there's an element of tough love to it without it being super confronting. Like there's certain things, and this is just from my time as a coach and a trainer, like there's big toe mobility is this weird thing that is tough for the public.
I've heard so much about this. And I want
And
more.
it was difficult for me, and I remember all the way back in NXT, or even times with certain CrossFit things, my big toe, it would hurt to get in that lunge position. And so like sometimes I would do something to alleviate it. And what I realized in time was that like that's your balance. And it's not the kind of pain that like you need to stop. Like, oh my God, you can't continue to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not comfortable, but it's not comfortable because you've developed like stiffness around that. And so if you lean more into it, and Dallas, they do that. And you can pull a chair over and lean on the chair. You can all these things that'll help you with your balance. It truly does meet you where you are. This is why I think you have people like Arthur Gorman, who had, was walking with canes from being a paratrooper in the military, able to overcome these things because it's tough love. Like, hey, listen, you got to do this. You got to face the facts that like some discomfort is where the building block of growth, but it's not so confronting that it's like, crack the whip and you're gonna do it my way. Like it's I don't want to say baby steps, but it's a progression.
Yeah.
And if you trust the process, like you will get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did the workout years ago.
Yeah.
We bought it a long time ago, and it is shockingly hard.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect like the resistance and the muscle tension.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. It was
Yeah.
great. What would you say to a 21-year-old wrestler that doesn't feel any pain yet,
Right.
that doesn't think they need DDPY?
I was there 100%. And especially, and this is another conversation, but with my faith, which I'll call even newfound somewhat, because it's only, my faith journey has been 4 or 5 years. I feel like it was the ACL surgery was placed in my path for part of it is for that reason. Mm-hmm. And it opened me up to a willingness to, because I was that 26-year-old kid, same thing. Mm-hmm. And doing CrossFit, I realized like, oh, I need mobility. So I started doing ROMWOD, which was a mobility component of CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And in that, in my pursuit of better mobility, I had the DDP app the whole time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I finally like came to the conclusion of like, well, I don't need ROMWOD. I have DDP yoga. Mm-hmm. And so I started leaning more into that. And like I had just said previously, like once I really scratched the surface of it, that was all I needed to see. He had come to NXT and we did some yoga with him, and I was, I enjoyed it, but I didn't go all in for whatever reason. And I truly think I tore my ACL. Part of it was so that God was making sure, like, listen, you need this. I've left this at your feet, mm-hmm. and you keep stepping over it. Yep. You're not going to step over it anymore.
He gets your attention one way or another, doesn't he?
Yeah.
No, that's great. And you actually read my mind, because I wanted to, if you don't mind, kind of touch base a little bit on your faith. Obviously, we are a faith-based school, and like Jesus is number one. You can see on the flag that it says Jesus is King. So we try to have him direct and lead all of our decision-making. Obviously, individually and in our family, but also corporately in our business. So if you wouldn't mind kind of touching base, about your faith story. You can go as deep or as shallow as you want, but what does your faith mean to you, especially in the wrestling industry?
It's hard to
I put you on the spot, I know.
No, it's hard to put into words. I mean, so I read this morning. I've the past like 3 weeks. I've started in the Bible app, different reading plans.
Great.
And the one that I read this morning, it actually I had never understood the Trinity the way that it explained it this morning, and I've always, even when my faith was not what it is today, I had always still been aware of what I now call the Holy Spirit, but within me, even when I had no like real faith, I still always had that. It was like that gut feeling or that something. And now I identify it as part of the Trinity and being the Holy Spirit. And this morning, it was just the stuff that I read had such an explanation of that it gave me so much to like kind of meditate on and ponder.
Heck yeah.
And so I really loved that this morning, and having those in my life at this point is it's just an incredible, I don't want to call it a crutch, it's not a crutch, but an incredible tool to know that, like, okay, you can go into the Word and you're not going to get the answers. The answers, it's not spelled out like that for you. That's not the way life works, but it's assistance. There is assistance in there, and I know every time I have cracked the book, or like now with these reading plans, how does it apply to what's bothering me that day, or what's been bothering me that week or that month, or whatever's got me in my head? Somehow it applies. And how is that possible? It doesn't seem possible to like logical thought, but I guess that's kind of the whole that's faith, right?
Yeah.
Is that it's not seen, it's not heard, you can't smell it, you don't, you're not supposed to understand it.
Right.
You're just supposed to experience it.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like I've been fortunate enough now to be experiencing it. It's it'd be a story for another time, but my wife and I, like anybody else, we've had our ups and our downs, and our story, it has so much to do with my faith. At this point, it has so much to like, I prayed at times for things that are so now.
Yeah.
And so for those, that to be the case, it really bolsters my faith. And I'll bring it into a little bit of a personal thing here too. Like, Nick, you and I know each other because of our faith.
That's it.
Like, that was how I met you. Chad and Drake, who I worked with in WWE, they were constantly after me to come to service, and it just wasn't my gig.
Yeah.
And I had given them excuses, and I didn't do it, and then finally, the circumstances of life were just in a place where I went, and it was, truly a moment. And those moments continued to happen, and then they started we used to call it Coffee with Jesus. And it was, we would meet Wednesday mornings or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
And it was here in Longwood. And that was the first time you and I met. And to think, like, then all these years later, like, we would run into each other at an independent show.
Yeah, a wrestling show.
And it's just, again, you could chalk them up to happy accidents. And when I had a different belief, I probably would have, but I don't anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing is...
I fondly remember that morning when
Yeah.
you went to Coffee and Jesus, because I was on a plane flying down to Florida to watch you as an extra. You were at NXT as an
Yep.
extra.
I was there for
And
just a few days.
I was flying down because we had made the decision to move in May. So we were coming to look at neighborhoods, but he was already here. And he texted me. He's like, "You're never going to believe this. I'm at a Panera with Bobby Fish." And then there were some other people there too.
Other
Maybe I
big
shouldn't
names.
name drop,
Yeah.
but there were some big names there, and I geeked out a little bit on the
Yeah,
plane.
all the people that I've watched on TV, it was super cool. It was like, what is life right now? Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you that just hearing that anecdote to having been on, like the same story, but just a slightly different side of the boat,
Yeah.
right? Like, it just solidifies it even more.
Yeah.
Because we're not alone in this. We're out there as believers, believing in a common theme, in a common thing, and he's not working it out just for me. He's working it out for all of us.
Amen.
And yeah, I don't. It's almost more ludicrous to not have faith for me after my life experiences at this point.
Yep. After all these, Renee and I joked about this. After all these circumstances that we've seen in retrospect, it'd take more faith to not believe that there was a God, and
Right.
not believe that we're blessed and highly favored. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I love the turn this is taken.
yeah. No, thank you for sharing that,
Yes,
man.
thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, of course.
I guess if you don't have anything else,
Well, we have a confession that we wanted to do on this podcast.
we'll save that for
he's
once.
stopping me.
I had one more question for
Okay.
Bobby, and then we'll lay the bomb on him, break his poor little heart. So looking forward, you've been coaching almost a full week now. Based on your your wrestling experience, your life experience, all the things that you've learned, and all the amazing things that you've gone through, what do you think? What can you bring to the table for all the wrestlers that are here and anyone who's interested in becoming a wrestler, and also like what do you think needs to change about training or about the way people look at the business? This is an extremely loaded question, by the way.
Sure.
What
What are you excited to bring?
What are you excited
Yeah.
What are you excited to bring to the table?
I think for me at this point in my career, I've realized some of the flaws in the way that I learned, not necessarily the way that I was taught, but the way that I then started to apply those things and learned on my own. A lot of that you're learning by being around your peers, and there's some good and some bad that can come from that. I was also just super fortunate to be under the learning tree of, and God, this is going to sound like name dropping, but of
I'll pick it up.
Terry Taylor and Triple H and Shawn Michaels, Fit Finley, William Regal. I mean, I was fortunate in that way. Even people like Gato from New Japan and the style that he booked, and then just being around people like Kyle O'Reilly, Roddy Strong, Malachi Black, like other peers, but who also have a strong opinion on how things should be done.
Sure.
I think that part of what's missing is just things being organic and people being comfortable with the discomfort that comes from, I don't have a plan necessarily, but I know I can figure it out. And the little cheat cards that I have, which if you're inside the business, I think you may know what those little cheat cards might be, but that's all you need to go out to that ring. You don't need soup to nuts, tie up to pinfall. And in fact, that's the worst way to try and do it because you're setting yourself up. That's a flawed design. It's a broken machine. It can't be successful. Can it be passable? Sure. But you will rob the soul from your performance. There will be no life to your performance will just be paint by numbers, and paint by numbers has an expiration date. It's only got so much shelf life.
Sure.
So I would love to be able to share the knowledge of the Fit Finleys and the William Regals of my fortunate past with the people coming up now, because our business is going to, go on forever. I think it'll it'll make it through. Pro
agree.
wrestling will be here after Armageddon.
Yeah, true.
That's a quote.
Pro wrestling, Twinkies, and cockroaches. The only thing.
Right. Twinkies, pro wrestling, and cockroaches.
That's it.
That's a hell of a. There's a holy trinity right there.
That's the three amigos right there, baby.
Oh boy.
So what I'm hearing you say is essentially being comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah, because I think, and not to really bring this full circle, but it's like a microcosm of life, right? Like, there's no growth from comfort.
Right.
The discomfort is generally where the most growth comes from. And so, like, if I look at my own life, like, the things that changed me the most were the things that at the time were awful. But again, that comes back to my faith of like, okay, we'll have patience because it's on his schedule. It's not on mine. So just because it seems like right now the sky is falling, maybe it just requires a little bit of patience on my part to see that like he's preparing me for something that I'm not currently prepared for.
Sure. Absolutely. Life is a training ground, definitely. Speaking of uncomfortable, Renee, you can drop.
Oh,
the
man.
ball.
So this is our first. This isn't our first podcast that we've recorded together, right? Remember? But this,
I think so.
well, maybe
Yes,
he-
we
maybe
did
he-
do. No, we
oh.
did do
The
one.
Office,
I was
yes.
like, well, if
Yeah.
he forgot, this isn't a confession. Then
Yeah, no, I get hit in the head a lot, so my wife will tell you.
this is the first podcast that will air that we have done.
Oh, okay.
The first podcast to the man behind the camera.
He didn't press
Kidding.
record.
No, we lost it.
Oh.
Yeah. It was.
Okay.
I was like, Bobby's never asked why that podcast never went live. It's because we lost it. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Immediate repercussions will be taken. So if you're out there and you're a camera guy, please hit us up. We're looking for new guys.
Hey, we have more to film today. Don't make him mad.
Yeah.
He's always mad.
We love
buddy.
you, Chris.
So finally, I promise this time, last question. So obviously a big motto here is go mad, go make a difference. What does making a difference mean to you?
Making a difference to me would be finding a tactful way. I think this is something that Diamond Dallas Page is really, really good at, but finding a tactful way to have the difficult conversations. Because I think in my brief time doing seminars and coaching pro wrestling and, even personal training and coaching martial arts, egos are real. Feelings get hurt very easily. I think it's a really good rule of thumb to try to not take things personal. But again, I say try because that's so easier to say than to do.
Yep.
But I think, going forward, it's I think I'm kind of losing track here.
Make a difference.
Yeah, make a difference. Yes. To present the hard conversations, to not go around them, to know that they need to happen, but to find to show the most grace in confronting them. So when it is something that I think I'm going to be presenting to somebody that is maybe a difficult conversation, just having the patience to take a beat for myself and think about the way that I'm delivering it and the way that it's coming out so that it can be received. Because listen, at the end of the day, if it's wrapped up in, barbed wire, it's probably not gonna land,
Definitely.
But
That's a good way to put
if you soften the edges a little bit and you make it something that is a little bit more receivable while still getting the point across, because sometimes, hey, tough love, is exactly what's needed.
Yeah.
But I think there's a tactful, graceful way to do that, and I think that that's our job as believers is to find it. Because at the end of the day, if it's not going to land, who cares?
Yeah.
Like if you're willing to just throw it out there and like, well, be damned with how I deliver it, like, well, then the message is lost. So
Yep.
let's not lose the message.
Yep, absolutely. Truth and love.
Love
Yep,
it.
I love it. I love it. Well, I love this conversation. Thank you so much, Bobby. We appreciate it. We're so excited for what you've already done and the things down the road. But that is where we end because we're on a strict time crunch today. We got a lot of videos to film. So thank you guys for joining us. So until next time, be great, be excellent, show love, go make a difference today, champions.
Go, man.
Love y'all.